The silent plea. The planet Sol Rhea was dying. Once it had been a place of thriving cities, lush green valleys, and towering crystal spires that reflected the twin suns. Now it was a wasteland. The skies were dark with smoke, the rivers had turned to dust, and the air carried the scent of decay. The Sol Rhean people were desperate. For years, they have fought a war they never wanted. A ruthless alien empire, the Zovac Dominion, had invaded their world, stripping its resources, burning their cities, and leaving nothing but ruin behind. Now, with their military shattered and their leaders either dead or in hiding, the survivors had only one hope left: a distress signal. The message had been simple. To any who can hear us, we beg for mercy. Our people are dying. Our home is lost. Please, help us. They had sent it out across the stars, their last plea for survival. Days passed, then weeks, then months. No one answered. The Galactic Council, the great alliance of the universe's most advanced species, remained silent. They had seen the message, but they did nothing. To them, the Sol Rhean people were too weak, too small, and too unimportant to be worth saving. The Council had its own politics, its own wars, and its own interests. Sol Rhea was not part of them. The survivors waited in the shadows of their ruined cities, hoping for a miracle. A young Sol Rhean's despair. Laren sat on a broken wall, staring at the ruins of his home. He had once been a scientist, studying the mysteries of the universe. Now he was just another refugee, waiting for a death that seemed closer each day. His younger sister, Celia, sat beside him, holding a small transmitter. She had been sending the distress signal over and over again, even though she knew no one would reply. "Laren," she whispered, "no one is coming, are they?" He wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her that someone, anyone, would come, that the great civilizations of the galaxy would not just let them die. But he couldn't. The silence was answer enough. Celia sighed and looked up at the sky. Maybe we were never important enough to save. Laren clenched his fists. "No," he said firmly. "Someone will hear us. Someone will care." But deep down, even he wasn't sure anymore. Far across the stars, light years away, beyond the reach of the Galactic Council, beyond the borders of the great empires, a small blue planet floated in the darkness of space. Earth. On a space station orbiting Mars, a group of human researchers studied an incoming signal. "Sir, we've picked up a distress call," a young technician said, adjusting his headset. His brow furrowed as he listened. It's bad. These people, they're dying, and no one's answering them." The station commander, Captain Elias Carter, leaned over his shoulder. "Who are they?" "An alien race called the Sol Rhean. Their world has been destroyed." The Galactic Council ignored them. Captain Carter's jaw tightened. Of course they did. For decades, humanity had been kept at the edges of galactic politics. The Council saw them as newcomers, unworthy of a seat at the table. But humans had learned one thing. The so-called advanced species of the galaxy did not care about the weak. "Sir," the technician hesitated. "What do we do?" Carter stared at the screen, at the desperate message playing over and over again. He thought of Earth's own history, of the times when his own ancestors had suffered and no one had come to help. He knew what the Council would say. "It's not our problem." But Carter had a different answer. He turned to his crew. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "Tell them, humanity is answering the call." Back on Sol Rhea, Laren and Celia had stopped hoping. Their message had become nothing more than words lost in space. Then, one night, as they sat in the ruins of their home, the sky changed. A bright streak of light appeared in the darkness, growing larger and larger. More followed. Not meteors, not enemy ships, something else, something new. Laren's eyes widened as he recognized the shape of the ships descending toward them. Celia gasped. "Laren, Someone heard us. The impossible had happened. Humanity had arrived. The arrival of humans. The sky was burning. Not with fire, but with hope. Laren and Celia stood frozen, their eyes locked on the ships descending from the heavens. They weren't like the sleek, golden crafts of the Galactic Council or the jagged warships of the Zovak Dominion. No, these were rugged, angular, built for resilience rather than elegance. They looked like they belonged to a species that had fought for every inch of its survival. And now, they had come for the Xal-Rayan. For a long moment, the ruins were silent. Then the first ship touched the ground. Dust and debris swirled as its landing thrusters powered down. A metallic hiss filled the air as the ramp lowered. Then they saw them. Humans. They walked forward in heavy boots, clad in armor that looked practical, battle-worn, and efficient. Their weapons were slung over their backs, but their hands remained empty. A silent message. They had not come as conquerors. Laren's heart pounded. He had studied dozens of alien species in his years as a scientist, but humans had always been a mystery. The Galactic Council rarely spoke of them, and when they did, it was with dismissal or quiet fear. Primitive, reckless, unpredictable. But looking at them now, he saw none of that. He saw determination. He saw purpose. He saw something that no other race had given them. A chance. A face of humanity. One of the humans stepped forward. His face was lined with experience, his dark eyes scanning the Xal-Rayan with a quiet intensity. He removed his helmet, revealing short, silver-streaked hair and a scar that ran from his jaw to his temple. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he looked at them, truly looked at them, like he was assessing not just their condition, but their pain, their exhaustion, the weight of all they had lost. Finally, he spoke. His voice was rough, steady. "Who's in charge?" Laren hesitated, glancing at Celia. Their leaders were dead or in hiding. There was no government, no army, no structure left. The only authority here was the will to survive. Swallowing his fear, he stepped forward. "We have no leaders anymore." The human gave a slow nod, as if he understood that better than most. "Then I'll speak to you." A different kind of power. Within minutes, human medics were tending to the wounded, their technology crude compared to the advanced medicine of the Council, yet somehow more efficient. They didn't waste time with bureaucracy or protocol. They simply acted. Their engineers were already scanning the ruins, murmuring about temporary power sources and makeshift defenses. Others unpacked crates of food and water, supplies that for the Xal-Rayan had become more valuable than gold. Laren watched in quiet awe. No speeches, no negotiations, no conditions. Humans didn't ask for anything in return. They simply helped. The question that changed everything. As the relief efforts continued, the human leader, Captain Elias Carter, approached Laren. "What happened to your world?" Laren's throat tightened. Where could he even begin? The war, the betrayals, the desperation, the silent, crushing abandonment by the same Galactic Council that had once called them allies. He took a slow breath and told Carter everything. The human listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. But when Laren finished, he saw something flicker in the captain's gaze. Not pity, not sympathy. Anger. Not at the Xal-Rayan, but at the ones who had let this happen. "They left you to die," Carter said at last. Laren lowered his gaze. "Yes." The captain exhaled slowly. Then he turned to his crew. "Get me a direct link to Earth. And prepare the fleet. We're not just here to deliver supplies." He looked back at Laren, his expression turning to something cold. Humanity doesn't abandon those in need. If your enemies are still out there. He pulled his helmet back on, the visor flashing red. "Then we'll make them regret it." Humanity's promise. The Xal-Rayan people had spent years drowning in despair. Now, for the first time, they felt something dangerous. Hope. The humans worked fast. Within hours, their technology had restored power to sections of the ruined city. Lights flickered to life in the darkness. Fresh water flowed from makeshift filtration systems. The scent of real food, not the stale ration dust that Exalarayan had survived on, drifted through the air. But logistics were not what shocked the survivors the most. It was the way humans treated them. There were no sneering politicians demanding repayment. No arrogant commanders barking orders as if they were conquering a primitive world. The humans spoke to them as equals. A Xalrayan child, no older than 6, tugged on a soldier's sleeve. The human, instead of ignoring her, knelt down, offering her a ration bar with a smile. An injured Xalrayan warrior, too weak to stand, refused help at first. "I am not your burden," he muttered. The human medic only chuckled, slapping a medical patch onto his wounds. "Nah, you're our responsibility now." Laren watched it all, his heart pounding. This wasn't how the galaxy worked. This wasn't how powerful species acted. Then again, humans weren't like the rest of the galaxy. A war that never ended. Captain Elias Carter stood on a damaged balcony, his gaze locked on the horizon. The ruins of Xalraya stretched endlessly. It reminded him of something. A city called Fallujah. A battlefield named Stalingrad. A planet known as Earth. Laren approached him cautiously. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" Carter sighed. "Too many times." Laren hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" Carter turned to face him, arms crossed. "You sent a distress signal." No one answered. He nodded toward the camp below, where human soldiers were laughing with Xalrayan refugees, sharing stories, sharing food. "But we did." Laren frowned. "The council calls you reckless. They say humans don't understand politics." Carter smirked. "They're right. We don't do politics." His voice hardened. "We do war." Laren felt a shiver run through him. Not fear, respect. "Then I need to ask, are you here to save us?" Carter's expression darkened. He exhaled slowly, then looked Laren in the eye. "No." Laren stiffened. Carter took a step closer. "We're here to arm you." Preparing for retribution. A massive human warship hovered in orbit, unloading crates of weapons, supplies, and armor. Unlike the delicate high-tech gear used by the Galactic Council, human weapons were brutal, efficient, and terrifyingly simple. The Xalrayan warriors examined their new gear in stunned silence. "This rifle, it's heavier than I expected." A human soldier grinned. "That's because it's made to last. Sandstorms, rain, zero gravity. We make them for war, not for show." Celia clutched the edges of a bulletproof vest, her fingers trembling. "We don't know how to use these." The human beside her chuckled. "You will." Training began immediately. Humans did not coddle them. They drilled them, taught them how to fire, how to hold the line, how to fight dirty. One Xalrayan, exhausted, collapsed to his knees. A human instructor, Sergeant Bishop, knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "You think this is hard," he said, voice calm but firm. "Your enemies won't care if you're tired. They won't care if you're scared. You fight, or you die." The Xalrayan swallowed hard, then stood. He would fight, and he would not die easily. A message to the galaxy. Meanwhile, Carter stood in front of a communication console. The humans had overridden the Council's broadcasting network. Soon, their message would reach every species, every empire, every government. Carter leaned forward. His voice was calm, but his words were a declaration of war. To the Galactic Council, to the Zovac Dominion, to every empire that heard Xalraya's cry and chose to ignore it. You made a mistake. The humans had not just come to save a dying race. They had come to change the balance of power. And the galaxy was about to learn why you should never ignore a plea for help. When the lion wakes. The galaxy had seen war before, but never like this. The Zovac Dominion had crushed countless civilizations, leaving only ruins in their wake. They had burned HFY and expected silence. They had expected the cries for help to fade into nothing. But humanity had answered. Now, the Zovak warlords were about to learn what that truly meant. A council in panic. On the capital world of the Galactic Council, holograms flickered across a vast chamber. Dozens of alien leaders argued, their voices rising in panic. The humans are interfering. They're arming the HFY. This is a direct violation of neutrality. We must send a diplomatic order. Diplomacy. The voice came from a reptilian ambassador, his scales flaring red with anger. Do you not understand? Humans don't ask for permission. They act. The Dominion will retaliate, and when they do, Earth will burn. The room fell silent. Then, an older counselor whispered what they were all thinking. Unless, he swallowed hard, unless Earth burns them first. The Zovak response. Admiral Xor of the Zovak Dominion sneered as he watched the footage of humans arming the HFY rebels. He had crushed HFY once. He would do it again. Deploy the fleet, burn the city, kill the humans, and make sure the Council watches. A chorus of affirmations followed. The Dominion had won every war they had ever fought. This would be no different. The trap. But humans don't fight fair. When the Zovak fleet arrived, the skies above HFY were empty. No human warships, no defense fleets, just the burning ruins below. Admiral Xor laughed. They ran. He gave the order. Reduce the surface to ash. Zovak warships descended, weapons primed. And that was when the first missile hit. A Zovak destroyer vanished in a fireball. Another warship was split in half, its engines torn apart by railgun fire. The sky, once empty, came alive with shadows. Human ships uncloaked. They weren't the massive, elegant dreadnoughts of the Council. They were ugly, brutal, and designed for one thing: destruction. They were waiting for us. A Zovak officer screamed. Admiral Xor's sneer vanished. Human warships didn't move like other fleets. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They moved fast, dodging between enemy fire. Their weapons didn't just disable, they obliterated. And on the surface, HFY fighters, armed and trained by humanity, rushed from the ruins like ghosts of the past. They fought with new weapons, new armor, and something far more dangerous. A reason to fight. Fear in the Dominion. Back in the Zovak capital, warlords watched in horror as their invincible fleet was torn apart. They had seen many wars, but they had never seen humans fight. One warlord, his mandibles twitching, turned to the others. They're just a primitive species. How are they doing this? A silence followed. And then another warlord muttered, because we never should have ignored that distress signal. The humans hadn't just answered a plea for help. They had rewritten the rules of war. The message that ended it. As the last Zovak warship floated in flames, Captain Elias Carter stood before a holocamera, broadcasting one final message. His words would be remembered for centuries. To the Zovak Dominion, you should have answered the cry for help. Now you know what happens when humanity answers instead. The war was over. But the galaxy would never be the same. The price of war. The battle for HFY was over. The Zovak fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, had been shattered. Their warships, reduced to wreckage, burned in the planet's upper atmosphere. Humanity had won. But victory always has a cost. The fallen. The battlefield was silent now, except for the crackling flames and the distant hum of human medics working tirelessly. Captain Elias Carter stood among the fallen. Human and HFY bodies lay side by side. They had fought together. They had died together. A HFY soldier, barely clinging to life, grasped Carter's wrist. Did we win? His voice was weak. Carter nodded. Yeah, kid, we won. The soldier exhaled sharply, a hint of a smile on his lips. Then it was worth it. His grip loosened. His eyes closed. Carter let out a slow breath. Yeah, it was. Victory had come at a price, and humanity knew that price all too well. The Council's fear. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The Council was in chaos. The humans had not only defeated the Zovak Dominion, but they had done it with ease. What do we do? One ambassador whispered. If humans could break the Zovak, what could they do to us? An elder counselor slammed his fist onto the table. We should have helped the Xalrayan when they called for aid. Now we have created something worse. What? Another counselor asked. The elder exhaled. A reason for humanity to stay in this war. The war isn't over. In the Zovak capital, surviving warlords gathered in the shadows of their once mighty empire. We underestimated them, one hissed. The humans are not just warriors. They are something else. Another warlord, his body still wrapped in bandages, spat out the word as if it burned his tongue. They are monsters. The Zovak Dominion had been invincible for centuries. Now, for the first time in their history, they were afraid. But fear breeds desperation, and desperate empires do not surrender. They plot revenge. The oath of Xalrayan. On the battlefield, survivors gathered around Carter as he looked out over the ruins of the city. Laren, his armor still scorched from battle, stepped forward. You saved us, Laren said, and we will not forget it. Carter shook his head. We didn't save you, Laren. We gave you the weapons to save yourselves. Laren tightened his fists. Then let us do more. He looked around at the warriors standing beside him. Xalrayan soldiers who had once been broken, but were now reborn. The galaxy left us to die. We won't let that happen to anyone else. He dropped to one knee. Let us fight beside you, Captain Carter. Let Xalrayan stand with humanity. The others followed, kneeling in unison. For a moment, Carter said nothing. Then, slowly, he smiled. Welcome to the fight. A message to the galaxy. Across the stars, humanity's message rang clear. If you cry for help, we will answer. If you stand alone, we will stand beside you. And if you try to burn us, we will burn you first. The war was not over, but the balance of power had changed. Forever. The wrath of the fallen. The war should have ended. The Zovak fleet had been broken, their invasion of Xalrayan crushed. Humanity had proven its strength, but the Dominion was not finished. They had lost a battle. Now, they would make the galaxy bleed. The last order of the Zovak warlords. Deep within the war-ravaged halls of the Zovak High Command, the remaining warlords stood in the dim glow of a flickering hologram. Their once mighty empire had never suffered a defeat, until now. One of the surviving generals, his exoskeleton cracked and scorched, spoke through clenched mandibles. We cannot win a war against humanity. Another warlord snarled. Then we will not fight a war. We will burn their worlds before they can fight back. Silence fell. Then, one by one, the warlords nodded. If they could not defeat humanity on the battlefield, they would strike from the shadows. Their next attack would not be on Xalrayan. It would be on Earth. The warning. On the outskirts of Sol, a small listening station drifted through the void. It was quiet, its crew of 5 monitoring distant transmissions. Then the alarm screamed. Commander Julia Reynolds shot up from her chair, eyes locked on the screen. The signals were scrambled, distorted, but one word came through clearly. Invasion. Her blood ran cold. Get me, Command. Now. Across the Sol system, the alerts spread like wildfire. Earth was under threat. Humanity had stepped into the Galactic War. Now, the war had come to them. The Council's betrayal. As humanity scrambled to prepare, a transmission arrived from the Galactic Council. The ambassadors, their faces unreadable, made their decision clear. We will not interfere. Captain Elias Carter, listening from Xalrayan, clenched his fists. So that's how it is. They had been fools to believe the Council would stand for justice. The moment humanity became a threat, the Council had abandoned them, just as they had abandoned Sol Raya. But Carter was done pleading. He turned to Laren and the Sol Rayan warriors. "We won't be fighting alone." Laren grinned. "No, Captain, we won't." A call to war. Across the human colonies, fleets mobilized. The old warships, built for a war they had hoped never to fight, now burned their engines toward Earth. And they weren't alone. The Sol Rayan warriors, the rebels that humanity had armed, had become an army. They had fought to reclaim their home. Now, they would fight for humanity's home. The Dominion thought they would strike Earth unchallenged. They were wrong. The last transmission. Before the first Zovak warships entered Sol, one final message was broadcast from Earth. It was simple. "You should have answered the call for help. Now you will answer for your crimes." The battle for Earth had begun. The battle for Earth. The stars above Earth burned. The Zovak fleet had arrived, twice the size of the one that attacked Sol Raya. Thousands of warships descended upon the Sol system like a swarm of hungry locusts, their weapons primed to turn humanity's homeworld into a wasteland. But Earth was not Sol Raya, and humans were not alone this time. The first strike. The Zovak expected an easy invasion. They had bombarded countless worlds before, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. But as their warships approached, Earth's defenses came alive. Orbital railguns roared. Massive kinetic slugs, each the size of a building, tore through the Zovak vanguard like paper. Missiles weaved through space, hunting their targets with ruthless precision. Then, from behind the moon, the human fleet emerged. Sleek, angular warships surged forward, engines burning like fire in the dark. They did not hesitate. They did not hold back. They attacked with everything they had. And with them, flying the Sol Rayan banner, came humanity's newest allies. The Zovak expected a slaughter. Instead, they found a fight. The turning point. The battle raged for hours. Wreckage drifted through space, the corpses of warships floating in the void. The Zovak still outnumbered the humans, but numbers meant nothing when faced with pure, relentless determination. Captain Elias Carter led the charge aboard the Horizon's Edge, Earth's most advanced warship. His voice rang through the comms. "We don't run. We don't bow. We end this, here and now." The human fleet pushed forward, weaving through the chaos with impossible precision. They were outgunned, but they fought with something no alien empire could understand: desperation. For them, this wasn't just a battle, it was survival. Then, the Sol Rayan forces arrived. Laren's voice crackled through Carter's radio. "Time to return the favor, Captain." From the edge of the battlefield, hundreds of Sol Rayan warships, repaired, upgraded, and fueled by vengeance, dived into the fray. They had once been victims. Now, they were executioners. The fall of the Dominion. On the Zovak command ship, the High Warlord watched in horror. His forces were being torn apart. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. He turned to his generals. Prepare to retreat. But before they could, a human strike team had already boarded his ship. Carter led them personally. Blaster fire filled the corridors as the human soldiers fought their way to the bridge. The High Warlord, cornered, bared his fangs. "You think you can end us? The Zovak Dominion will never bow." Carter raised his weapon. "Then you'll burn instead." A single shot ended the war. The message to the galaxy. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The war was over. The unstoppable Zovak Dominion had fallen. And humanity. Humanity had risen. The Galactic Council, once indifferent, now watched Earth with fear and respect. The Sol Rayan people, once abandoned, now had a new home among the stars. And as for the rest of the galaxy, they had learned a lesson. When humanity answers a call for help, they do not just fight. They do not just win. They changed the future. Forever.